Welcome to the Tim Booker channel, the spreader of wisdom and virtue. Wishing you a pleasant listening experience. Today, we will discuss the book titled Work Without the Worker. What does it mean? This book explores the era of digital platforms and extensive automation, where not only is work diminishing, but it's also being replaced by microtasks. The author of this book, Phil Jones, is a researcher at the University of Sussex in the UK and the Digital Autonomy Centre of a non-profit research organisation in Germany. He primarily focuses on issues related to data usage on digital platforms. Through his research, which includes companies like Amazon, Google, and Twitter in Silicon Valley, he discovered their heavy reliance on outsourcing platforms for data processing. Many seemingly highly automated high-tech services are, in reality, powered by human labor. This book uses examples from these companies to tell us that it's not algorithms but the low-paying, harmful, and psychologically taxing labor that drives digitalization. The nature of work is being altered by algorithms, giving rise to a form of work that is technically work but not entirely so, microtasks. Let me ask a question. We've all heard that AI advancements will replace many jobs. With the emergence of various large language model AIs like ChatGPT, Llama, and Llama 2, who taught AI algorithms to recognize what a cat is? What's the story behind it? From a technical perspective, a group of people indeed labeled data to provide the essential training materials for AI. For example, labeling some images as motorcycles and others as bicycles. But who are these people? Many of these data labeling tasks are carried out through outsourcing platforms in places like Kenyan slums or declining industrial areas in the United States, where they hire cheap, marginal labor. Let me give you an example from a news report in January 2023 from Time magazine. OpenAI, in order to teach its AI model what not to learn, extracted tens of thousands of text snippets from the darkest corners of the internet, including content related to murder and torture. They partnered with an outsourcing company called Sama to teach AI the concepts of good and evil. This outsourcing company is mentioned in the book as well. They not only collaborate with AI companies but also with Amazon. They train local refugees in countries like Kenya, Uganda, and India to operate computers for less than $2 an hour, while Amazon CEO Bezos earns over $1 million per hour. Not only are the wages low, but the workers also have to browse through a large amount of horrifying content, which some workers describe as torture. Many high-tech industries upstream have a rough form of labor. In this age filled with technological wonders, automation seems to be just a step away from completely replacing human labor. However, considering that AI requires a constant influx of new data for iteration, maintenance, and upgrades, this one step might be further than it appears. I've divided this book into two parts. The first part discusses what microtasks are and the role they play in the platform economy. The second part explores the impacts of microtasks and what the post-work era might look like in the not-so-distant future. Let's first understand what microtasks are. Microtasks are somewhat similar to gig work, but they are more closely related to digital technology. They involve breaking down a large project into numerous small units, such as annotating images with cats, categorizing videos, transcribing audio, and so on. These tasks are then outsourced through platforms. Each individual task is quite straightforward, taking perhaps just a minute or half an hour to complete. They don't require particularly complex technical skills. The term microtask was initially coined by Sama, the company mentioned earlier, back in 2008. At that time, Sama's CEO even used the term virtual assembly line to describe microtasks. Microtasks are like the smallest units on a virtual assembly line. You can think of it as a virtual assembly line, but every position is filled by temporary workers found through online platforms, scattered across the globe. As mentioned earlier, Amazon collaborated with Sama, but Amazon itself is one of the pioneers in the microtask platform. Their platform is called Mechanical Turk, which might seem peculiar. However, when you understand the origin of this name, it becomes quite fitting for describing microtasks. The reference here is to a famous historical invention in Europe. After the Renaissance, Europe started to popularize various mechanical devices, from clockwork birds that sang to human-shaped automatic puppets. Society was captivated by these marvelous new technologies. In 1770, an inventor created an automatic robot that looked like a Turk, dressed in robes, with a turban, and a long beard. It held a long pipe in its left hand and placed its right hand on a chessboard on the table. The inventor claimed that this robot not only played chess but was superior to human players. He toured with the Mechanical Turk and defeated most of the chess players, including the French Emperor Napoleon and American founding father and scientist Benjamin Franklin, among others. During the performance, a cabinet door beneath the table would open, revealing gears and levers, showing that this robot was entirely mechanically designed to play chess without human intervention. This robot changed hands multiple times and continued touring until the 1830s. The godfather of horror and detective fiction, Edgar Allan Poe, watched the performance in the United States and wrote an article stating that machines cannot predict human moves and couldn't possibly win continuously. He believed the Mechanical Turk was a hoax. You might be skeptical too about the existence of complex artificial intelligence in the 18th century. Well, it was indeed an illusion. It was only in 1854, after being destroyed in a fire, that the owner of this robot finally revealed the secret. There was, in fact, a human chess player concealed inside. The cabinet appeared empty because there was a hidden space within where the human player would change positions. For nearly 100 years, different chess players took on this role, but the secret of the illusion was never revealed. People had no idea that behind this seemingly incredible and novel technology, there were humans operating it. The Mechanical Turk website at Amazon was initially an internal service introduced in 2001, designed to outsource certain parts of computer programs to humans. For example, at that time, Amazon needed to remove duplicate items from thousands of products, and machines couldn't distinguish subtle differences between text and images to identify duplicates. Human execution was much faster than the less intelligent algorithms available at the time. Later, Amazon recognized the growing need for cheap labor in the emerging platform economy and developed this service into a platform called Mechanical Turk, which officially launched in 2005. Companies can post microtasks on this platform, and anyone can register as a Turker. The platform takes a 20% cut of the earnings. The Mechanical Turk website now offers various outsourcing jobs, which the platform refers to as human intelligence tasks, HITs. The book describes how a microtask worker can complete various types of tasks within a day, including translating a section of text, transcribing audio with a British accent, demonstrating to algorithms how to recognize bicycles, writing product descriptions for e-commerce websites, tagging unpleasant content like child pornography, collecting information about nearby fast food restaurants, or even uploading a picture of one's own feet. Most of these jobs pay just a few cents, equivalent to a few cents in Chinese currency, but they are the most basic tasks on digital platforms. Much like the 18th century magic trick, behind the computer screen, remote human labor accomplishes tasks that machines cannot, and the results are often presented as the outcome of algorithms. Amazon's founder, Jeff Bezos, refers to it as artificial intelligence. Many times, what we see as outcomes are actually hybrid products of human collaboration with algorithms. The type of mixed algorithms discussed in this book is not only used by shopping websites like Amazon and artificial intelligence companies like OpenAI. Even social media, search engines, and automotive companies are utilizing them. It's worth adding that not all AI algorithms require labeled data for training to generate content using machine learning models. For example, AI drawing, which is quite common nowadays, often employs generative adversarial networks, an unsupervised learning algorithm. The author doesn't delve into the role of microtasks in these types of algorithms. For example, a platform now known as X, used by Twitter, has established a real-time human computation engine to identify trending keywords. In Twitter's own words, they send these searches to real humans for evaluation and then incorporate human judgment into their back-end models. While this might sound sophisticated, it's essentially an algorithm detecting a trending keyword and quickly dispatching relevant tweets to Amazon's Mechanical Turk workers for data tagging. Eventually, the model is trained to discern customer preferences based on content. The book gives an example from the 2012 U.S. presidential election when candidates Romney and Obama were debating public spending. Romney mentioned a famous children's television character called Big Bird. This immediately became a trending topic on Twitter. Twitter then sent the results to Amazon's Mechanical Turk to have micro-workers check for any memes or relevant events. For instance, they needed to differentiate between political tweets and those related to children's programs. Twitter's machine learning model learns about user engagement based on this processed data. If someone had never searched for children's programs before, they might not receive children's program promotions even if they post content about Big Bird. Instead, they might receive political advertisements. Talking about machine learning, we know that artificial intelligence is rapidly evolving through machine learning. However, have you ever wondered where machine learning gets the massive amounts of training data it needs? For instance, to make Siri respond to "Hi Siri" from various accents, genders, and age groups, how are these training data collected? The answer is that well-prepared training data often come from Mechanical Turk and platforms like Sama. So, just as smartphones are assembled in factories, algorithm models also have data factories in the form of microtasks. At least at this stage, it seems that behind Silicon Valley AI companies with high-tech technologies, there isn't a technology-intensive industry but rather a labor-intensive one. Let's look at how platforms govern this industry. The author suggests platforms can be divided into two categories. Some platforms have broad classifications and can be referred to as basic crowdsourcing platforms. Mechanical Turk is a typical example. There's also Clickworker, a German company with operations in over 130 countries, reportedly employing around 2 million workers. Then, there are more specialized platforms. Sama, for example, customizes data needed for machine learning for specific long-term clients. There are platforms specialized in creating tags for warehouse robots, providing natural language processing data, and performing sentiment analysis on voice data, among other things. These platforms are different from the basic ones in that they require more specialized skills. Recognizing specific expressions, data subfields in varying lighting conditions, or having expertise in cross-language translation is not straightforward work but is broken down into relatively cheap microtasks. However, the relationship between platforms and microworkers isn't as equal as it may sound. The book describes that platforms often employ algorithms tied to income. For instance, if a microworker's data label differs from most others, for instance, if most people write "traffic light," while one writes "stoplight," their labels may be deemed of poor quality and they might not receive compensation. This quality standard is very opaque and often lacks effective channels for complaints. In fact, many platforms claim to be neutral and don't mediate between microworkers and task posters. Moreover, task posters are often anonymous, while registered workers use their real names. Platforms can also choose when to pay wages, and if an account is banned due to technical issues or incorrect addresses, the unpaid wages can be forfeited. In summary, microtasks are the low-tech, gig work of the high-tech industry. Microjobs are characterized by low pay, minimal skill requirements, fragmented time, and little job security. Microjobs typically offer very low pay, and many times, workers struggle to find tasks, which further reduces their effective hourly income. It's common to hear stories of microworkers who work 12 to 16 hours per day but earn just $5 per hour. If you're not working and only searching for tasks, the earnings per hour can plummet even further. Many platforms describe microworkers as independent contractors or even micro-entrepreneurs, which might sound appealing, but it means there are no employment benefits. The reality is that platforms provide income but little else, and the income is often too low. You might assume that microtasks are just supplemental income for low-wage formal workers, but many microtask platforms are primarily used by the most marginalized individuals who struggle to find other employment opportunities. These platforms give them a chance to earn barely enough to make ends meet. In fact, this phenomenon is often referred to as friendly crowd work or social responsibility outsourcing. In places like Palestinian and Syrian refugee camps or slums in Kolkata, India, various platforms have set up projects that offer microtasks. Some platforms even collaborate with prisons, allowing inmates to train algorithms for startup companies. For instance, in the field of autonomous driving, while many cars use onboard cameras to capture the surrounding environment and use algorithms to recognize objects like vehicles, pedestrians, and obstacles, the training data often come from Venezuela. Due to economic collapse in Venezuela, with an inflation rate once reaching 100%, many people had to rely on their computers to earn a living through microwork platforms. In 1 year in 2018, 75% of the training data for autonomous driving algorithms came from Venezuela. Yet, their pay was less than $1 per hour. You'd expect that as digital technology advances and automation increases, life and employment should become easier. But, the true source of microtasks tells a different story. The author's summary of the partial employment wave in the digital economy era, or you can call it a long-term relative labor surplus, might sound quite technical, but let's break it down. Essentially, it means that technological advancements increase productivity. When this happens, some companies have to lay off workers, leading to unemployment. However, traditionally, as productivity increased, new industries made more money, and the previously unemployed people found work in these emerging sectors. But in the digital economy era, this cycle has been disrupted. Why? The author mainly discusses the situation in developed countries and identifies 3 factors driving this change. 1. Automation in the digital economy reduces the demand for labor. This one is easy to understand. The more machines, like robots, are used, the fewer people are needed. Workers who are replaced often either can't find employment as industries expand or find only a small proportion of jobs available. For instance, a production line that used to require 500 people may now only need 20 people to supervise robots, leaving 480 people unemployed. 2. Industry shifts are also quite straightforward. After the 1980s, the Third World, including Southeast Asia and China, integrated into the global market economy. This resulted in a massive increase in the global labor supply, which made labor cheaper. The consequence was a global shift in industries. Many labor-intensive manufacturing industries moved from developed countries to countries with cheaper labor. These shifts didn't create new jobs in developed countries but didn't fully absorb the workforce in developing countries either. This led to a global oversupply of labor. This oversupply became more prominent due to the combined effects of automation. 3. The third factor involves changes in the industry structure. The service sector's share of the economy increased substantially in developed countries. However, unlike the manufacturing sector, the service sector is less sensitive to technological progress. Jobs in services like cleaning, catering, and more are mostly immune to automation. Workers who were displaced due to technological advancements in manufacturing may not find jobs in the service sector because their skill sets don't match. In conclusion, under the influence of these 3 major factors, economic growth and the growth of new job positions are out of sync. People can't secure the stable and secure standard employment that's typically seen as the norm. Instead, many workers end up in underemployment, characterized by high levels of temporary, erratic, and occasional informal work. Microtasks represent the latest form of such employment. Microtasking allows individuals to perform countless types of work in a day, but they're not considered professionals. The core difference between microtasks and regular jobs is the lack of genuine salaries, which prevents microworkers from being recognized as real employees. They often fall under the guise of training or part-time work, which may look like greater independence than regular employment but often just means more time spent searching for work. Automation doesn't necessarily make life better, in fact, it might be underpinned by a less-than-ideal life. Would you wonder upon hearing this? What might the future of the post-work era look like? Is it destined to be only a pessimistic outcome? The author is actually more optimistic than you might think. He believes that a positive outcome is already budding. However, before we delve into the positive aspects, it's essential to understand what the negative outcome could entail. The unregulated expansion of microtasks already implies the potential for an adverse outcome. For example, the author mentions that many microtasks could essentially be considered grave-digging work, jobs that bury their own future. What does this mean? There are 2 dimensions to this concept. First, directly, it means that the results of their work could genuinely pose a threat to their lives. For instance, people working on microtasks in Middle Eastern refugee camps, where they label images, might unknowingly contribute to data used by U.S. military drones for surveillance. The second, more economic and long-term aspect, is that as AI becomes more intelligent, jobs will become scarcer, particularly the low-skilled jobs that algorithms can easily replace. In essence, it's like the apprentice starving the master, with the master being the microworker. Their current work is essentially digging their own future graves, as jobs are lost progressively and rapidly. If these jobs are harmful to the workers themselves, why do people choose to do them? The answer lies in what was mentioned earlier. It's to keep the employer's algorithms confidential. The task information is highly opaque, and workers have no idea how their work will be used. Big companies like Google and Microsoft use vendor management systems to assign microtasks on their internal platforms, further subcontracted to external platforms like Sama. This web of subcontracting helps companies maintain secrecy, allowing them to position themselves as tech companies, not labor companies, to attract more investment. It also helps them obscure their presence, avoiding responsibility for a massive workforce. Both the platforms and the big companies are aware that microworkers are at the core of their secrets, and the machinery inside the mechanical Turk is their algorithms. Microworkers can only work within the algorithms, obeying the arrangements given by these algorithms, without being allowed to understand the practical applications of their work or letting outsiders see their labor. This negative outcome may remind you of a popular art style called cyberpunk. If summarized in 6 words, it's high-tech, low-life. In cyberpunk literary works, society is dominated by technology monopolies. All services are infused with high technology, with neon lights illuminating the cities. However, the vast majority of people, crowded at the base of towering skyscrapers, struggle on the fringes of social order, oppressed by technology meant for the enjoyment of others. Many microtask platforms exhibit tendencies that are reminiscent of such domination. They design complex rating algorithms, where if workers don't complete tasks within specified time frames or if their error rate is high, their ratings drop, making it harder to get tasks and even leading to the suspension of their accounts. In this negative outcome, grave-digging work continuously eliminates remaining jobs, marginalized unemployment grows, and society faces severe polarization, heading into an unknown future ruled by algorithms. But what might a positive outcome of automation look like? The author claims that signs of a better future are already visible within microtasking. Karl Marx once stated in the German ideology that in the future, where material conditions are highly advanced, anyone can develop in the field they like. Society manages the entire production, allowing people to do different things according to their wishes, like hunting in the morning and fishing in the afternoon. However, these wouldn't be fixed professions, and that's where microworkers come in. Today, microworkers teach AI to read one day, and guide cars on roads the next day. They are already pushing towards this dream of diversified labor. Advocates of microtasks also promise to give workers an independent, flexible, and leisurely work life, which isn't guaranteed in current microtasking. But the fundamental difference lies in today's society. The basis of material living conditions is material income. For those who can't earn enough income, it's hard to sustain basic living. Independence and flexibility often translate to poverty and instability. Present-day microtasking is just a transition or supplement, not a guarantee of a dignified life. However, when automation replaces workers in various fields such as manufacturing, logistics, and driving, it means fewer people will earn wages. Simultaneously, it signifies an exponential increase in the supply of these services. The author proposes that in the future, when human labor is no longer a high necessity for basic living conditions in areas like healthcare, utilities, housing, and food, society should provide universal basic services for free, ensuring the full development of everyone. In this scenario, as automation scales up, the supply costs of basic services decrease, and the scope of universal basic services should expand accordingly, making income no longer the prerequisite for basic living. Previously, on microtask platforms, workers had to increase their work hours to compensate for low wages. But in this new society, they can experience diverse, short-term, and freely chosen microtasks that genuinely offer leisurely labor or personal growth opportunities. What's more, in such a society, algorithms providing basic living conditions wouldn't be confined to proprietary technology boxes of large corporations. All members of society should have the right to understand and even participate in their management. For example, the algorithms that were previously used to push ads based on consumer preferences could now push work tasks based on personal interests. The algorithms, once used to confine workers, can now serve them. To sum it up, microtasks and automation offer both negative and positive outcomes. The core difference lies in work income and whether it's a prerequisite for basic living. If income scarcity leads to material scarcity, society may fall under the dominion of automation technologies like algorithms. However, if automation can provide universal basic services, society opens itself to more possibilities. Of course, this idealistic post-work utopia sounds great, but there's still much debate and experimentation needed to reach a consensus, particularly concerning how to turn corporate algorithms, such as those for quality assurance, into public resources. We must first acknowledge the struggles of micro-workers, so we can find and address the problems that cause them. While many micro-workers are dispersed geographically and organizationally, they lack mutual understanding. Most of their grievances remain hidden in the labyrinth of complaint management, turning into the hum of servers, unheard by society. However, solutions are emerging, like the movement in Brazil advocating for better housing conditions for unemployed and underemployed individuals. In the US, there are worker centers that provide material support and psychological consolation for laborers. Some have developed browser plugins for microtask websites that allow workers to evaluate the content, thus overseeing the platform. Others have created dedicated forums for microworkers to share experiences and understand the specific companies behind recent tasks. The most substantial movement is the letter-writing campaign against Amazon. Protesters are collectively sending complaint letters to the platform, drawing media and public attention to demand higher wages and worker rights. One letter, though simple, is profound: "I am a person, not an algorithm." To quote the renowned historian E.P. Thompson, "The ideal society will not rise like the sun on its own, it must be manufactured by people." In the age of AI's global conquest, we must both recognize the new technology without being blinded by it and master it to enjoy its benefits. At the same time, we must understand the dark side of this technology, take preventive measures, and make sure everyone can enjoy the fruits of automation, instead of being pushed aside by it. How to realize this vision of the post-work era remains an open question, but we hope to provide a satisfactory answer for future generations. Congratulations, you've just finished another book. Thank you for your support and attention. Please subscribe to the Tim Booker Channel audiobook channel, like, and share with your friends and family. Wisdom deserves to be spread to create a better future. Thank you, and goodbye.